Human Settlements, together with the Gauteng Partnership Fund, will for the next 2 days host the Gauteng Infrastructure Investment Summit in Midrand here in Johannesburg. The aim of the summit is to highlight infrastructure investment opportunities in the Gauteng City Region and also to forge new partnerships with the key local and international investors to fast-track the delivery of integrated and sustainable mega cities. To tell us more about the summit, we joined in our studios in Johannesburg by Keith Khoza. He is the Director General for Communications from the Gauteng Human Settlements Department. And Tata Khoza, good morning to you. Good to have you in our studios.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for coming through. Now, let's talk about the importance of the private sector coming on board in terms of the delivery of houses and infrastructure as a whole.
Well, it has been a view that government has always held that when it comes to providing services, it can't do it on its own. It has to partner with the private sector, because we need the financial muscle of the private sector to come and help accelerate service delivery. In this instance, we are looking at a situation where, if you look back since 1994, where we've had a backlog of housing, particularly in Gauteng being the leading province in providing houses, that situation has continued to pose a challenge for government. And we know that government has limited resources to meet the demand of our people. We therefore are soliciting the role of the private sector to make sure that we do accelerate housing delivery, but also within the context of human settlement that looks beyond housing. We look at houses, we look at social infrastructure, schools, we're looking at clinics, we're looking at roads, we're looking at the economic side of things, what the Provincial Department of Economic Development calls township economies and so on. We want them to find expression in our mega projects and so on. So we are looking at building new cities, actually, futuristic cities which are smart and also that would be relevant in going forward.
All right, so you're looking for investors both here at home and internationally, but how have things been in the past? Are they really coming on board?
There has been an appetite from the private sector to invest in government projects. People believe that if you invest in government projects, there are guaranteed returns. Remember, when we invite people to come to our mega projects, there are guaranteed returns in terms of government subsidies, whether it's RDP houses, social housing, FLISP, or what we call the gap market, where people can get assistance from government to build houses. That has generated appetite. However, the biggest challenge for most developers is to access the actual money to kickstart the projects, because with the mega projects, we're looking at turnkey, where you come and you're not only coming to build a house or a few houses and walk away. You come with a plan of a new human settlement in an area. You're looking at the roads, you're looking at schools, you're looking at clinics, you're looking at all that social infrastructure, open spaces, and now we're also moving away from singular units that we have seen in the past that characterize the RDP, a small house sitting on its own. We're talking about walk-ups now, which is a new challenge which requires much more solid infrastructure, but the government pays a bit more for those subsidies and so on. So we are in business, and we do want the private sector to come join us.
And I would believe this will also contribute towards job creation.
Certainly. If you look at most of our projects, for instance, we recently launched a project called Dioport Ekurhuleni, which will yield about 22,000 houses. Now, that's a huge project by any measure. It's a multi-billion project. It will generate jobs for the next 5-7 years, sustainable jobs for that period. But it also allows a new economy in that area, because remember, when we build these new projects, we're no longer building them in isolated areas where They are far from the economic infrastructure. They are now getting closer to the economic infrastructure, but they are economy on their own. So there are jobs that are being created, but there are also economic opportunities that are provided by those initiatives.
So in terms of your investors, what assurance does this partnership have in terms of, giving that assurance to investors that partnerships will be free of corruption?
Remember when we, actually the mega projects will help us a great deal, because we do not tender these out. People submit proposals. You must have land. It means you must have bought land.
Okay.
You must have raised the funding to do the project. We will guarantee the subsidies. When it comes to appointment of contractors and everything, it is your baby as a developer. So it is no longer government that must issue a tender with a possibility of corruption coming in.
Yeah.
It is now private sector driven at that point. Our responsibility is quality assurance, is to approve the plans, is to give you the agreement for subsidies, quality assurance, the quality of the product, to ensure that it complies with all that is required, in HBRC and so on.
Right.
So it will not certainly affect us in any way.
So the process will be transparent in that instance?
It will be transparent, yes.
All right. Talk to us about the summit, who will be attending, and your expectations thereof.
Well, the road to the summit has been long. We've had discussions with many potential investors, with the pension funds, with the banks, with the investment funds. So both locally and outside of the country, who have really shown an appetite.
So you've been traveling around to law investors. I believe you were telling me earlier on that you were in Dubai last week.
Yes, one of the big investors that wants to come was involved in the projects in Dubai, in building what we see as a miracle in Dubai, which happened in the last 10 years. They are interested to come in and invest in mega projects, but also we are looking for that expertise and that professionalism. If you look at the products they've offered, they are amazing in terms of moving away from old towns as we have known, to bring modern, smart towns and so on.
Something
so
different,
not only are they bringing money, we want them to bring the technology, the skills, and the know-how, how to accelerate mega projects.
All right, and Tata Khoza, we have to leave it at that, but thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much indeed. That's Keith Khoza. He is the Director General for Communications from the Gauteng Human Settlements, talking to us about the summit, the two-day summit that will take place in Midrand here in Gauteng from today. Let's take a break. When we come back, we head to Durban for the World Economic Forum on Africa. Stay tuned for that.